All right, I'm going to read an article in the JunoEmpire.com website. It's about Pete Kott and Vic Kohring. And you say, who the heck are Pete Kott and Vic Kohring, and why do I care? They were also set up by the Polar Pen Team. Remember I said the Polar Pen Team went after lots of people? Not only Ted Stevens, but they also went after Schaefer Cox. They went after these two guys, Pete Kott and Vic Kohring. And Pete Kott and Vic Kohring were let out of prison. They were given a plea deal to get out, but nobody offered Schaefer a plea deal. But I want to read this article about Pete Kott and Vic Kohring, and then I want to read to you what a judge said about how the government acted. Specifically, all of the prosecutors, Steve Skrocki, Yvonne Lamro, Joseph W. Bottini, Nick Marsh, who killed himself, and this James Skrocki guy. But let's learn a little bit about Pete Kott and Vic Kohring. It's dated October the 20th, 2011. Plea deal calls for Kott and Kohring to get time served, supervised release in corruption cases. Plea agreements called for two former Alaska lawmakers to be sentenced to time served when they plead guilty on corruption charges Friday. Sentencing memoranda filed Wednesday show a plea agreement between Pete Kott and prosecutors call for a sentence of time served followed by 3 years of supervised release, with Kott having a curfew for the first year. Kott also would be fined $10,000. An agreement with Vic Kohring calls for the time served and supervised release of an amount determined by the judge. Prosecutors are recommending 3 years. Each man plans to plead guilty to one count stemming from maneuvering surrounding a 2006 tax vote in the state legislature. Remaining charges against both would be dropped. A judge signs off on the deals. Kott served 17 months in prison and Kohring about a year after being convicted on corruption charges in 2007. The two had been among those caught up in wide-ranging probe of political corruption in Alaska, but their convictions were overturned earlier this year with new trials ordered after an appeals court determined there had been prosecutorial errors. Kohring's retrial was to have started October 31st, Kott's later this year. Memoranda filed Wednesday by Kott's attorney, Peter Camille. You remember Peter Camille? He was the guy that was Schaefer's attorney. But Schaefer said that somebody high up pulled the strings, and Peter Camille was pulled off of Schaefer's case. Peter Camille and prosecutors showed that in addition to Kott serving about 17 months of his original 6-year prison sentence, he also has been on pretrial supervision, both before his trial and since his release, for a total of about 30 months. Camille said Kott had no violations. In the sentencing memorandum, Camille said Kott recognizes his close relationship with Bill Allen, the head of a now defunct oil services company, created an appearance of impropriety, and that his receipt of benefits from Allen during the 2006 legislative session, while a vote on oil production taxes was pending, crossed the line between what is and what is not legal, Camille wrote. Prosecutors say Kott solicited and accepted $7,993 from Allen in the form of a false invoice and phony payment to Kott's flooring business, and that Kott solicited a job from Allen. Allen also gave Kott $1,000 cash, they say. Camille said Kott accepts responsibility for his conduct and did not act out of greed, saying Kott would have supported the legislation regardless of what Allen or the company Vico wanted. The time Kott spent away from his family in prison will serve as a deterrent to him, Camille said, in casting the 62-year-old Kott as responsible and hardworking and no threat to the community. He said Kott had been working with his son in their flooring business and lives with his long-term partner Deborah Stavern. Prosecutors in their filing said Kott's career as a lawmaker is long over and that he is ready to move forward with his life. On Wednesday, Beastline is the judge that they had a problem with Lonnie Vernon. Wow, what a small world. On Wednesday, Beastline allowed Kohring to file his sentencing memorandum under seal. No reason was given. A message was left for a Kohring attorney. Prosecutors in their filing said Kohring took $1,000 from Allen, knowing that Allen was intending to influence his votes and actions in the legislature. They say Kohring also met with Allen and another VICO official, Rick Smith, asking if they could help with $17,000 in credit card debt he owed, and accepted the money from Allen. Prosecutors say Kohring had been under condition of release court supervision for about 28 months since his release from prison. He served about a year of a 31/2 year sentence. They say he, like Kott, is ready to move on. Mr. Kohring put his own personal interest above the interests of the people of Alaska when he joined the conspiracy to commit bribery and accept money from Bill Allen as a reward. They wrote, his current financial distress reflects the fact that he did not ultimately profit financially from his crimes, and he does not have the ability to pay a fine. Okay, basically what you guys need to take from this is that there was two Alaska lawmakers. One was Pete Kott, I believe. Yeah, Pete Kott and Vic Kohring. And they were put in jail for bribery, similar to the bribery charges that were going against Senator Ted Stevens. And there was found to be prosecutorial errors, and they had to let both those guys out of prison. Why haven't they let Schaefer Cox out of prison? Okay, let's go back to what this judge, her name is Judge Honorable Betty Fletcher. Okay, she actually said something about the prosecutorial misconduct, and I want to read to you what Betty Fletcher said. Betty Fletcher wrote about the prosecutorial misconduct. I am deeply troubled by the government's lack of contrition in this case. Despite their assurances that they take this matter seriously, the government attorneys have attempted to minimize the extent and seriousness of the prosecutorial misconduct, and even assert that Kott received a fair trial, despite the government's failure to disclose thousands of pages that reveal in part prior inconsistent statements by the government star witnesses Bill Allen and Rick Smith regarding the payments Kott allegedly received. The undisclosed pages also reveal an ongoing investigation of Allen for sexual exploitation of minors. So not only is the government using a $300,000 whore, Gerald J.R. Olson, they're using a Benedict Arnold, Bill Fulton, they're using Chris Menino to try to provoke Schaefer to buy bombs. They're using Aaron Bennett to plant grenade fuses. They're using sexual predators for government informants as their star witnesses. Ongoing investigation of Allen for sexual exploitation of minors and his attempts to suborn perjurious testimony from one of the minors, and information regarding Smith's questionable mental health around the time of Kott's trial. The government's stance on appeal leads me to conclude that it still has failed to fully grasp the egregiousness of its misconduct, as well as the importance of its constitutionally imposed discovery obligations. Because a new trial, in my view, is insufficient to remedy the violation of Kott's constitutional right to a fair trial and to deter future illegal misconduct, I would exercise our supervisory authority to dismiss the indictment with prejudice. So, just to summarize, you got Kohring and Kott that were targeted by the Polar Pen team. They used, one of their star witnesses was a child pedophile, right? And they withheld tons of exculpatory evidence. And this judge, Betty Fletcher, said that, what did she say? There's something that she said about egregiousness, if I can find it. Let me find it real quick. Yeah, here we go. The government's stance on appeal leads me to conclude that it still has failed to fully grasp the egregiousness of its misconduct, as well as the importance of its constitutionally imposed discovery obligations. So I'm not the only one who thinks Joseph W. Bottini, Yvonne Lamoureux, Stephen Skrocki, right? And I think another one's name is James Skrocki. All of those guys are evil bastards who withhold exculpatory evidence, and they are the evildoer pawns of Karen Loeffler and Loretta Lynch and Obama ultimately. And all of those United States prosecutors, every single one of them, deserves justice. Every single one of them. Yvonne Lamoureux, justice is coming. Stephen Skrocki, justice is coming. Joseph W. Bottini, justice is coming.